Hey there, Descendants, my fellow Americans, and people in other countries around the world. How are we all doing today? I hope everyone's doing well. So today, we're going to be discussing what the community thinks about the current state of the game, what their suggestions would be to Nexon to improve things, if any, and yeah, just what we all kind of think about the game. So let's get into it here. So I made a post, and I'm going to just go through one by one and just reply. It's not grindy enough and desperately needs more content. And yes, I'm serious on both, somebody says. So I would agree yet disagree with that. It's kind of a tough thing to pinpoint, but I mean, do I think the content within season 3 is sufficient? Not necessarily. Um, However, do I think it's not grindy enough? I don't agree with that at all. Um, because as I've said multiple times, we have people who are still trying to gain everything from season 3, whether it be one of the dogs, whether it be one of the weapons, whether it be one of the bikes, the descendants, whatever it might be. So as for season 3 not being grindy enough, I don't agree with that. As for there not being enough content, I can agree with that to some extent. I myself am sort of plateauing on what to do in this game at the moment a little bit, and I'm kind of grasping at straws at this point. So that would be my response to that. I do agree with needing more content, but I don't necessarily agree with it not being grindy enough. A trade system and a way to get rid of consumables, it's yes, 100%. Otherwise, can't get rid of. I 1,100% agree with this. As for the trade system, I mean, I could go either way on that. But as for like trying to get rid of consumables that you can't otherwise get rid of, yes, it is plaguing our data in the game. It is increasing our load times and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, 100% hands on agree with that. Someone else said, I'd like to see the map locations being used again. The levels from the campaign are so much more interesting than the huge empty spaces of Sigma Sector and Axion Plains, in my opinion. I've been helping my wife out on her games, so replaying a lot of the original missions, and apart from being able to blitz through them with my builds, they're infinitely more interesting and varied. Unfortunately, the current direction seems to be swarm the player with bullet sponge mobs rather than create something fun and challenging. Even the right player, Walk Crasher is, even according to the right player, I'm sure he meant to say, is just big guy with very large shield and health pool. There's nothing technical about the fight, which is disappointing. I would slightly disagree with that, only in the sense of, there are attacks that you have to consciously avoid in order to maintain survivability in the fight. For a number of builds, maybe like I guess outside of a well-built Serena. But anyway, let's continue here. I suspect that if it wasn't the best place to get trigger modules, no one would be playing him after the first week or so. So yeah, I can see that. Is it engaging enough? That kind of depends on who you ask. For me personally, it's okay. It's all right to fight Wall Crusher. I kind of do like fighting him. Just to kind of see where my build lies and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and grab our crystallization catalyst here.
If there's something you need, you'll need to pay.
And go ahead and cook another one, and then we will continue, of course. So, I mean, I feel like it depends on who you ask with that. Okay, so another person said improved story/story focused and competitive dungeons, no nerfs like Destiny type raids. Okay, yeah, I agree with no nerfing. I also agree with improving the dungeons, specifically the 250% ones. The 400% dungeons I feel like are done actually extremely well, but the 250% ones I don't necessarily agree are done in the best manner. They are a bit tedious and just overall uninteresting to get through. And I would also combat that point further and say that they should just make 400% dungeons for every amorphous material available at all times instead of being seasonal or weekly or whatever it is at the moment. Using so much gold on everything. Yeah, I understand we as players have to get gold out on the missions, but it's annoying. Man, it's tiring too. Okay, that also depends on how much you're spending the gold, though. At the same time, now I do agree that there should probably be a little bit more, a couple more ways to get a good amount of gold, like 5 million a day. From the invasions, I think that's good. I think that running the resource defense missions and getting, I think it's between 2 to 3 million gold for 10 minutes of gameplay on average. So I think that's pretty good. So I feel like if you just spend even like an hour just doing these missions back to back to back, you'll leave it with between 50 to 100 million gold very easily. So I kind of see the point, but also like just exercise the events in the game more and just play the game more and spend your gold less, play the game more. That's my advice to you. The visuals and sound mostly is amazing. Build on more original content based on more lore depth, which is easily digestible rather than many NPCs just throwing garbled words at the player. Interlink all that content in a more streamlined method instead of having this player needing to Google it or ask people in forums. This is what will strengthen their base. I agree. Remember that a lot of the audience did get burned and left off as the game set itself up, but then just seemed a bit lacking. These aren't early Destiny days when games could get away with lack of content. There was a lot of competition out there. Example, Axion is just boring. It's a massive bland map that didn't take a whole lot of work to create with some missions sprinkled. Okay, in terms of the lore, Axion Plains looks like that for a reason. It's been abandoned for X amount of years. The Vulgus just discovered it and they started taking over it. So, I mean, like if you just kind of attribute the lore to it, it is at the very least excusable and reasonably in the state that it's in. All right, let's continue. Almost every mission is just getting rid of hordes of enemies for or ridiculously bullet sponge enemies. I'm sorry. They need to have smarter AI enemies with varied attacks rather than just hordes of bullet sponge zombies. If you see some of the new mission bosses, a watered down version of those are what should be like elites. I mean, okay, so this is a power fantasy game, first and foremost. You create your descendant, you go melt mobs for the illusion of having power in the game. So I mean, okay, so play Purge. That would be my advice to you. I mean, Purge is a lot less boring than just melting enemies that you kill while you're farming things. Okay. Um, if my Inez, say for example, I farm the blue brains that you need to create crystallization catalysts. If my Inez couldn't easily melt those enemies, I would be a lot less incentivized to go and farm those resources, right? Um, same thing with the void. Same thing with a number. He's talking about a majority of the content in the game, and obviously not purge, obviously not. What is it here? I mean, Sigma sectors or not Sigma sector. Axion planes. So he is talking about Axion planes in terms of them being bullet sponges, but like, I don't know. I mean, it could now if the game were to introduce more challenging areas, kind of similar to Purge, I would not be against that. I would actually be for it. So I can see where he's coming from a little bit with this, but like, I don't know. I just feel like looking at it as a whole and saying, oh, this is bad because of like because it's too easy or it's not challenging enough. I feel like that's kind of disservicing to the areas of the game where it is harder and it is a little bit more thought put into it for the player's experience. One moment, please. Okay, and then he goes on to say, this is a time when they really need to put the pedal to the metal and then later have a drip feed, as it is now. I agree with that. I feel like now I'm not against skins coming out in any way, shape, or form, but I do feel like there should be more focus towards actual content in the game versus skins coming out. I feel like if you allocate at least half of the time you spend on skins to actually outputting real tangible content for the game is going to flourish. It's going to dramatically improve. You're going to have an increase in players, etc. Just releasing skins is not enough incentive for people to keep playing the game because all I got to do is put my bank card information in there, buy the skin, and then I log off. Which I actually did that when I first bought the bunny skin for Serena a few days ago. I bought the skin and then I logged off. That's all there was to it. I would like to see, this other person says, I would like to see more AoE weapons for the mobs in Axion. Maybe some hover bike gunplay and tricks. Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah, I mean, they could definitely improve upon like the hover bikes and stuff like that. They could make them more interactive with the gameplay. They could just overall make it a more immersive and engaging experience when it comes to the hover bikes rather than you click L1 and R3 and then you just press and hold R2 as it is on console. It would be LB and then right stick and then R2 on Xbox, and then I'm not exactly sure what it is on PC. But that's not really engaging. It's more so just okay, like I'm riding a bike. It's like, oh, I'm driving. It's kind of that whole thing. So yeah, I agree with that. First off, swords pretty please. Okay. Swords are coming on October 1st. Everyone knows that. Second, they could build on the Axion planes. Add more stuff to do there with each expansion. Yes. Fully agree. Wholeheartedly agree with that statement. Expand and develop further the whole area. Third, increase the level cap on characters, weapons, equipment, and add stuff that justifies this increase. Um, I don't think they should raise the level cap for Descendants or weapons. I think 1 to 40 is just fine. And if you do raise it, then it kind of, I mean, the grind as to building each individual weapon in Descendant becomes significantly harder and more time consuming to do. And I feel like as it is right now, it's time consuming and tedious enough to do these things. So I disagree with that. Another person says, not sure. It's buggy, hard to catch up if you stopped playing for a while. Okay, yeah, so this kind of fades into what I said in my other video that has over 1,000 views now. Thank you guys so much. Where we need more interactive and digestible tutorials in this game. Point blank. Especially for people who stopped playing for a while and they're not necessarily caught up. More story-based missions, someone says. Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, you could release a new Descendant that, let's say they were buried underground for X amount of years, X amount of months, whatever it is, and then they, I don't know, like say they're in White Knight Gulch or something. Like there's definitely things you can do to implement new releases and new content into the existing story-based content in the game that came when the game launched. So I agree with that. Glitchy, sometimes skills fail to cast. Yes, that is true. Good trigger mods don't hardly drop, and instead of giving us a little bit of content that we can do in a few weeks, there needs to be more. Maybe implement strictly farming gear for gold and things like that. Yes, you can roll gold on gear, but it still takes too long, even with the buffs. Research time on basic things we need shouldn't take 10 to 15 hours either. Make Axion 8-man instead of 4. Implement bigger maps and take away ones that we don't need now, which is a lot. Okay, I have to stop right there. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with taking content away. Um, because I'm of the opinion and the stance that options are good, especially when it comes to a game like this, where you cultivate and nurture your own personal experience with the game. That's just my opinion. That's my stance. Um, Let me see here. When rerolling weapons, it takes too many resources to get to the state you need in Golden. For God's sake, PvP. Okay, no. This game will never have PvP, and and I don't ever want it to have PvP. That's just no. Full hard stop. No, absolutely not. Trading. Yes, I'm not, like I said, I'm not for or against trading, but if they add it, that's cool. If they don't, that's cool. I don't care. There's ways that they can get around the resource and consumable issues without just adding trading, because trading would only inflate it if that would be the only thing that they do to address the issue. For endgame players, please be patient and just wait for the update. Okay. I mean, sure. Yeah, whatever. But there does need to be more sufficient content that comes out with each season. I'm of that opinion. Game needs a survival mode. Also, components that are appealing because half the effects are lackluster. Rework some gun special abilities. Okay, I agree with this. A lot of people have said we need an endless mode, which I do agree with. Do I agree with the fact that or with the idea that it should increase in difficulty as you go? It depends. It depends. I don't know. It really depends. I feel like they should have one that does increase in difficulty if they were to do this, and I feel like they should have one that is just straight, flat, the same difficulty across the board if they were to do that. Rework some gun special abilities. Yeah. So, for example, the eraser. Every time you upgrade its unique ability, the statistic for one of its unique abilities goes down, and I don't agree with that. I don't think that should be a thing. Third campaign difficulty like Axion. Make Colossus great again. OG Tony and a real Molten Fortress. Game's kind of lost its identity. Nerf a character if it's that hard to make content because it's unbalanced. It's like they made Wally just to gather info on Serena to find ways to indirectly nerf her. Games like Warframe will nerf or put a cap on a character really fast if they see something's insanely OP instead of adjusting the whole roster as they adjust one. I don't agree with that. I actually agree with TFD's approach on this. And I'll tell you why. It's because while there is power creep that exists in the game, it's namely in the Void Abyss bosses and stuff like that, and Purge to some extent. It's not enough to justify nerfing an entire character to a lowered standard. Instead, I feel like we should be bringing every single character up to that heightened standard because of the continuous Void Abyss bosses that are coming out that are harder than the last, etc. I want a melee finisher, meaning you can do finishing moves on. Yeah, finishing moves on enemies would be really cool. Lots of weapons need to be viable. Yes, I feel like everything in the game should be not necessarily the same exact level of viability or like power, but in terms of the relativity between Serena and Ultimate Luna, I feel like that's a great way to do things. I feel like all three of them kind of being in the same tier, but Serena still being that slight edge higher is a good thing. Let me see here. Honestly, I can't imagine what would help with this game, or what could help this game. So whatever they come up with must be very, very good. Sure. The part-time crybabies need to stop complaining about hard content. There's no hard content in this game, hence the reason why I left. Okay, so why are you even commenting? But some very difficult content for the veteran players. Also, harder void bosses. When I can clean them with Alt Sharon in seconds, it's not even a challenge. Okay, I mean, sure. Just keep copying Warframe. Yeah. Okay, buddy. The current strongest characters in the game don't even have ultimate variants, which is counterproductive to even have an ultimate system. I disagree with that. Only because, again, this game, while it is minimalistic as it is, this game does implement and have power creep. And I mean, eventually we're going to get to a point of where it's of where Serena, base Serena, is going to be maybe not necessarily like obsolete as a whole, but there will come a point to where it can be argued that an ultimate version of Serena can come out. Even if it's a year from now, even if it's 2 years from now, it will happen at some point. That's just how it goes. Endless mission with escalating difficulty like Warframe gives people a more fun way. Okay, yeah, I addressed this earlier. Um, so I mean, I agree with this, but if they're going to give escalating difficulty, they should give us a choice as to whether or not we need or we want to deal with the escalating difficulty, or just have it be a flat out endless horde mission without escalating difficulty. Um, so yeah, I mean, thank you guys so much for giving me your opinions, so I can just talk about them in the video and discuss what I agree with, discuss what I disagree with. I think that about does it for this video. And yeah, so I mean, we can further this conversation in the comments as well. And we can discuss further from there. And I mean, I can just, yeah, we can just talk about it, Just please be respectful, even if you disagree with me or other people. That's all I ask. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next